Now let's take a look at these teams' most played champions at Worlds 2016 and parse through some of the strategies you're going to employ. So in League of Legends, there are 133 playable characters to choose from, and you can only put 5 in your team at any one time. So obviously you have to make some cuts, you have to make some choices. We're going to start with top laners. Now top laners is a very interesting role. They're frequently isolated, and they bring a summoner spell called Teleport, which allows them to relocate really anywhere else on the map at a moment's notice. So you want things that are often self-sufficient, and we see tanks like Echo and Poppy, who are very durable, and they excel at disrupting their opponents using Teleport to reach the back lines and pick someone off, stun them against a wall, things like that. But you also see champions like Jace, who are squishy and do a lot of damage. They're not going to be flanking, they're going to be part of their own team's backline, so you're seeing, a diverse sort of style of champion, but they are isolated, they're often pushing by themselves in the side, and they will teleport frequently to join their teams.
Exactly, and top lane tanks, they are soaking up the damage, but a lot of compositions will require at least having a single tank in it, and if it's not the top laner and they might be on something like Jace, you look to the jungle for your next tank, and something like Olaf. Then the jungle role is about providing what the team needs. They are not tied down to a lane, they are enablers. They can visit lanes, be there for a few seconds, help get a kill, and influence that lane and push it in their favor. So junglers are mostly about controlling those camps in the jungle, influencing the lanes, and making sure that your team is set up for success, and they are one of the big, if not the biggest, factors in the early game. So you'll be tracking junglers quite often.
Definitely a huge factor in the early game. Let's move on to the mid lane here. And it's nice because they're all filling somewhat similar roles here. A mage is what we're typically seeing in the mid lane. And if you've ever played any kind of fantasy RPG, you kind of know what a mage does. Big storms, poisons, damage output. But they're generally speaking going to put out lots of damage, and usually in large areas. They're very good in the larger skirmishes, the big 5-on-5 team fights, with some crowd control and stunts as well to help.
Exactly, and the big thing about mages is they actually diversify your damage type palette. There's physical damage and magic damage, and every composition should have a bit of both.
Yeah.
And that's where you typically get your magic damage from, is from those mages in the mid lane. And they also bring something that we call wave clear, where they kill the minions very quickly, which allows you to get to those turrets fast. If you don't have wave clear in a composition, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be slow pushes, and the game will be really long. So mages in the mid lane is where you try to get those.
And one extra thing they do have is most of them, like Victor, like Cassiopeia, like Orianna, have access to crowd control, to stuns, to knockups, to ways to keep your opponents from doing anything at all for several seconds, which is super, super important. They have very high impact skills, and they're sometimes the most important characters in a team fight. Second to them, in my opinion, AD carries, also referred to as marksmen sometimes, which will give you a pretty good glimpse into what these champions do. They are typically long range, physical damage, and more often than not, especially for the champions like Caitlyn and Ezreal, their primary goal is just dealing damage, staying alive and hitting a single target as often as possible and whittling them down, whether it's a tank, whether it's someone squishier. You sometimes have examples like Jhin, also a champion we might see called Ashe, where they're actually bringing crowd control themselves. Jhin specifically has a very long-range ultimate where he shoots bullets that slow you down from like 3 screens away. And so sometimes you'll see AD carries bring utility and fight-starting tools to the squad.
Exactly, and crowd control, slows, stuns, something that helps lock down that character to prevent it doing damage, and that's where the support role comes into play. The support role will disrupt the flow of lanes and of fights, whether it's dealing damage to the enemy like Zyra and keeping them locked down and preventing them from repositioning, or Karma, which helps your team reposition and has a little bit of lockdown herself. So supports are usually tied during the early game to their AD carry and lane. They will stay with them for a very long time, but then they start roaming around the map. They play a little bit like a jungler, but they don't kill creeps. They don't kill monster camps. They end up getting a very little bit of gold, and then they start influencing the map with those abilities that lock people down.
Yeah, supports do a lot with a little. So we know there's a lot of champions to play, a lot to choose from. Now let's take a look at how these teams will select their champions. And we're going to use an example from our recent semifinals, Game 5 of SK Telecom T1 versus Rocks Tigers. And we are bringing Azael back in with us to help break this down. And I'm going to first start out by pointing your attention to the very bottom of the screen. The bottom left and bottom right corners are the bans. When the pick and ban phase starts again, 133 champions to choose from. What you're trying to do is paint a masterpiece. You're trying to paint the Mona Lisa with the best 5 champions that you can get for yourselves, but you're taking turns doing that. And so you're trying to ban things out that your opponents would want to use that you wouldn't have access to.
Yeah, and bans are very interesting because it's not just about taking out the most powerful champions. Sometimes it's about taking players off of what they're comfortable playing. putting them in a position where they don't really know what they want to play, or they're not going to be very good at what they have to play.
Exactly. And we had seen multiple champions in that previous slide. So if there are 3 really good champions in a row, you have the option to ban 2 of them and leave that last one open for yourselves, forcing the enemy to pick an unfavorable matchup or one that's not exactly strong right now.
And then as the bans come through, the pick phase starts. You're seeing the first pick has already come through for Rox Tigers. Teams get 60 seconds to lock in either one or, depending on the phase, 2 champions at the same time here. And because you take turns and you can only play a champion on one side, this is in a way a ban because you're denying it from the other team.
Exactly. It is a snake draft where the blue side, the left side of your screen, will pick 1 champion first. Then it goes over to the right side, the red team. They will pick 2, and then it will go 2 back and forth until the final pick, which will be by the red side, and they will pick 1 champion. Yeah.
And that final pick can be extremely important because it guarantees you at least one advantageous matchup. You can save that for something, maybe a secret, something to throw a wrench in the gears of your opponent, or to just get a really good lane matchup where you are going to have the advantage, be able to get ahead in that minion kills, or perhaps even kill your opponent off.
Yeah, absolutely the case. And it's always going to be interesting to see how they can manage to navigate through all these circumstances. Now, while the game is played 5-on-5, during Champions League, the coaches are behind them on stage. Usually they've got a notebook with a whole bunch of game theory planned out about what they are going to play and ban and pick against each other. So it's a very compelling phase. It's often very difficult to navigate through, but it's always a whole lot of fun to watch.
And I mean, one of the strengths of SK Telecom, which we had talked about earlier, is that they can play so many different things. It gives them flexibility in the pick and ban phase, and that really does make it very difficult for those teams to prepare.
Exactly, and you are stuck with those champions that you have selected for that entire game. Of course, then you are given 10 to 12 minutes between games to work on your strategy, try to adjust the pick and ban phase, and come back and select new champions. So there's a completely new pick and ban phase between every single game.
And one final thing to point out as far as the rules here, you're seeing the player names as well as the champions overlaid. They're basically just picking an order. At the very end, they will swap the champions to the appropriate player to play them. This Karma will most likely go to the support role or the mid lane, and we'll see it traded down to the player who's going to play that champion itself. And that's the important thing to watch for. Either way, basically they're just grabbing the champions, and they put them on the right players, and then the game begins.